Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a developing and highly sensitive situation that has raised eyebrows across the globe. Reports have surfaced that U.S. Marines moved to intercept a Russian tanker operating in the Caribbean Sea, triggering intense debate, speculation, and rising diplomatic tension. This incident comes at a time when global relations are already strained, and any military movement in strategic waters immediately captures international attention. The Caribbean has long been considered strategically important due to its proximity to the United States and its vital shipping routes. When news broke that U.S. forces were placed on high alert and a Russian-flagged tanker was intercepted, it quickly became clear that this was not an ordinary maritime encounter. The move signals how fragile the balance of power can be in contested or politically charged regions. According to early information, the Russian tanker was operating in international waters but reportedly drew scrutiny from U.S. defense officials due to intelligence assessments about its cargo and destination. While details remain limited, officials emphasized that the interception was carried out under established maritime security protocols. The U.S. military stated that the action was precautionary and intended to verify compliance with international regulations. This event unfolds against a broader backdrop of heightened geopolitical tension between Washington and Moscow. Over the past few years, relations between the two powers have been marked by disputes over security, regional influence, and military operations. Naval activity has increasingly become a visible symbol of that rivalry. When military vessels or strategic assets operate close to each other's spheres of influence, even routine maneuvers can be interpreted as provocative. The Caribbean region, although often associated with tourism and trade, has historically played a role in global power struggles. During the Cold War, it was the center of one of the most dangerous confrontations in modern history. While today's circumstances are different, the symbolic weight of military movements in the region cannot be ignored. Any involvement of U.S. Marines suggests that officials viewed the situation as potentially significant. Defense analysts suggest that intercepting a tanker does not necessarily imply direct confrontation. In many cases, maritime interceptions are conducted to ensure adherence to sanctions, safety standards, or international maritime laws. However, when the vessel belongs to a major global power, the political implications become much larger. Moscow has consistently criticized what it describes as Western interference in its maritime operations. From the U.S. perspective, officials argue that national security concerns justify vigilance. The Caribbean is close to critical shipping lanes and U.S. coastal infrastructure. Any intelligence suggesting unusual activity would likely prompt a rapid response. The decision to deploy Marines indicates readiness, not necessarily aggression, but it undeniably sends a message of seriousness. Meanwhile, Russian authorities have responded by condemning the interception as unnecessary and politically motivated. Statements released by officials emphasized that the tanker was conducting lawful operations. They have called for transparency and urged the United States to avoid actions that could escalate tensions further. Such exchanges of public statements often become part of a broader diplomatic chess match. The economic dimension also plays a role in this situation. Tankers typically transport oil, gas, or other strategic resources. In a world where energy markets are closely tied to global stability, the movement of such cargo can carry political weight. Sanctions, trade restrictions, and shifting alliances have complicated the flow of energy supplies worldwide. Any interference with shipping could ripple through international markets. Military experts note that interceptions are usually carefully calculated to avoid accidental escalation. Communication channels between naval forces are often maintained to reduce misunderstandings. Still, when military personnel board or closely approach a vessel, the margin for error becomes narrow. Professionalism and restraint are critical in preventing a routine inspection from spiraling into a larger confrontation. Public reaction has been mixed. Some observers support the U.S. action, viewing it as a necessary precaution in uncertain times. Others worry that increased military activity in sensitive regions risks normalizing aggressive postures. Social media has amplified speculation, with various interpretations circulating before official confirmations are fully released. Another layer to consider is the involvement of regional Caribbean nations. Countries in the area might find themselves navigating complex diplomatic terrain. While they benefit from stable trade routes and security cooperation, they also may wish to avoid becoming arenas for superpower rivalry. Regional governments often emphasize neutrality and adherence to international law. Strategically, the United States has long maintained a strong naval presence in and around the Caribbean. The region's proximity to the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic shipping corridors makes it vital for commerce and defense. Increased patrols or readiness measures may reflect broader security assessments rather than a single isolated event. For Russia, expanding maritime operations beyond its immediate neighborhood demonstrates its intent to operate as a global naval power. Deploying vessels across distant waters showcases logistical capability and political messaging. However, such moves inevitably attract attention from rival powers, particularly when conducted near sensitive areas. Diplomatic observers suggest that behind-the-scenes communication is likely ongoing. In moments like these, quiet negotiations can be as important as public statements. Military officials from both sides often rely on established protocols to clarify intentions and reduce misunderstandings. While rhetoric may appear heated, practical cooperation sometimes continues out of public view. It's also important to separate confirmed facts from speculation. Early reports in rapidly developing situations can contain inaccuracies. Governments tend to release limited information initially, focusing on operational security. As more verified details emerge, the full context of the interception may become clearer. The concept of high alert itself can mean different things. It may indicate increased readiness levels, enhanced monitoring, or precautionary deployment of additional forces. Such measures do not automatically signal imminent conflict, but rather a posture of preparedness. Military planners routinely adjust alert statuses in response to evolving intelligence. Energy analysts are watching closely to determine whether the tanker's cargo could have implications for sanctions enforcement or regional supply chains. Any interruption in energy shipments can affect pricing and availability. However, so far there has been no confirmed disruption to broader trade flows. From a legal standpoint, maritime law governs how vessels may be approached and inspected. International waters allow freedom of navigation, but certain circumstances permit verification activities. The exact legal framework applied in this case will likely be scrutinized by experts and diplomats alike. This event also highlights how interconnected global security has become. A single maritime encounter can draw attention from multiple continents. Alliances, trade partnerships, and defense agreements create overlapping layers of interest. What happens in one region rarely remains isolated from global politics. Looking ahead, much depends on how both governments choose to frame and manage the situation. Escalation is not inevitable. History shows that even tense encounters can be resolved through careful diplomacy and adherence to established norms. However, the tone of official communication will influence public perception and international reaction. For now, the situation remains fluid. Monitoring statements from defense departments and foreign ministries will provide clearer insight into next steps. Observers will also watch for any changes in naval deployments or additional patrols in the region. Ultimately, this episode underscores the delicate balance between vigilance and provocation. Nations have the right to protect their security interests, but actions taken in contested political climates can carry unintended consequences. Maintaining open lines of communication and respecting international frameworks remains essential. As we continue to follow this story, it serves as a reminder of how quickly global dynamics can shift. Maritime encounters may seem distant from everyday life, yet they influence markets, diplomacy, and perceptions of stability. The world is watching closely to see whether this moment becomes a brief headline or a turning point in broader tensions. Thank you for watching and staying informed. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to stay tuned for further updates as more verified information becomes available.